is this doing this? There we go. All right. Nice. What's up, Frank? What's up, Coleman? How you doing, man? There we go. All right. Finally, someone I can talk to about the stuff I want to talk about.
Hey,
There he is. What's up, Dave? How are you, man?
can you hear me?
I
I
can
can
hear
see
you,
you.
good
I can
sir.
hear you.
Really?
Doing
This is a
good.
first for Facebook. Yeah. Excellent, excellent. Well, I
This
guess
is cool.
yeah, have you done lives before? I know you got your own podcasting thing going on, but have you ever done the live on Facebook? It
No,
gets
I've only
difficult.
done, I think I've done a solo live. I've never done a buddy live. So this is cool, man. Good to see you.
Yeah, yeah. They make it difficult. So I figured, yeah, like I finally want to get somebody on that I could talk to about all the cool stuff that everybody kind of avoids. I guess let me just introduce you for anybody that may not be familiar with who you are. Dave's a martial artist, a philosopher, and he helps host the Unslaved podcast and everything. So we're going to talk about some of the stuff most people I think venture away from because it gets too into the realm of what do you call it, the mystic or the just I don't know. So yeah, I guess what do you want to start? What's your opinion on the Epstein thing? Because I think that'll lead right into the fun stuff. You
Wow.
know?
Well, first of all, congratulations on your exceptional joke yesterday with Bob. That
Oh,
was funny as hell. You guys got me
thank you,
going. I thought that you guys were going to head with that, but well done. And I agree
thank
that
you.
yeah, there's a lot of bickering in the what you call the alternative movement, and it's ridiculous. But anyways, Epstein.
Right,
I mean, nobody knows. That's the problem. And there's too many
right,
questions. And just like all these things, there's more questions than there are answers. And the more you look into it, as they are. And I just sit
right.
back and I go, okay, maybe the guy killed himself. Maybe he hung himself 2 feet
Maybe.
off of his bedpost and broke his neck in multiple places.
Right,
24 hours after 2,000 pages of evidence was run on. We could go
right,
into the
right.
conspiracy theory.
Oh no, not
But
that.
I don't know. Maybe I've just seen too many mafia movies. Maybe I
Could
just don't
be.
trust multi-billionaire pedophiles that run international sex syndicate rings
You don't
that
trust
might have
billionaire
information
pedophiles?
exposing high-profile people.
You don't trust
Yeah, I don't know.
billionaire
Something up with. I
pedophiles?
don't.
What's
Is it
wrong
is
with
it,
you?
is it just me? And I have this weird problem trusting the media that always keeps parroting the same talking points and never
I don't
allows
know.
for critical examination of evidence to be broadcast to the public.
You
So
know,
yeah,
you
you can call me
sound you
crazy,
sound
but
kind
I
of
think
yeah,
it's
you sound kind of fringe
I
right
smell a
now.
rat.
Right, right. Yeah. Something
I'm
someone
pretty
pointed out.
fringe. Are we
Yeah,
walking on the
pretty
fringes,
fringe.
Justin?
Yeah, excellent. I stay on that line like my little game of dodgeball back in the day. Yeah. So anyway, no, a nice piece of evidence that somebody pointed out to me that I didn't catch myself was that they claimed on the news, and I did see this, that Epstein was around 200 pounds. What 66-year-old man is around 200 pounds? That's not overweight. Like, well, talking about the hanging, that doesn't sound accurate at all. Like you mean to tell me I got 45 pounds on Epstein? I don't know if I buy that, but that was just more of that ridiculous evidence and everything. Personally, I think he's still alive. I think they shipped him off to either Europe or Israel, and he's still getting children for the ruling elite and all those people that you for some reason don't trust. You know, who
The guy
knows?
was a weak link in the chain, and they're like, let's just get rid of this guy. Or maybe he paid off that Hulk looking dude that was his prison cellmate. Maybe
I
they throw
saw
him a
that.
couple
That guy
bucks. Say,
was a
hey, because I
monster.
don't want to face the music. I
No,
don't know.
right.
Who knows? That's the thing. We don't know, but we do know what we do know. Okay, what we do know about this is that there is a heck of a lot more going on behind the scenes when it comes to these black market underground sex slave trafficking. Just think of that movie Taken with Liam Neeson and
Great
extrapolate
movie.
it
Yeah.
like 300%.
Right.
And we know that this dark stuff goes on. People, don't kid yourself. It's not all ponies and
Exactly.
rainbows out there. And
Absolutely.
so, whichever way we're going to look at this, I think it's important to look at it critically. I don't think there's anything at all wrong with challenging the status quo or the mainstream narrative. I think it's important. I think it's healthy. I think that we're too gullible. Most of
Yeah.
the information traveling around now is in memes, which I love your memes, by the way. They're freaking
Thank you.
hilarious.
Thank you.
But most of the information is just it's hearsay. It's somebody just repeating a headline that they read in between Netflix series that they're watching and the work that they're doing. And everybody's an expert now. And I mean, hey, it is what it is. But if you're going to try to look for the truth, you got to come at it with some care. You have to care. You have to give a shit about the truth. You can't just say, yeah, I care about the truth, and I'll just believe the first CNN article I see or the first thing some guy tells me. And I always tell people, don't even believe what I'm saying, because maybe I'm wrong. Exactly. I don't know. Me too. We're on a pursuit of truth. Would you agree that? That's the point. Absolutely. We're pursuing the truth in an extraordinary time, and I think it's the most extraordinary time to be alive, man.
Absolutely. Like, it's really crazy, especially after the Industrial Revolution and all the technology and everything's just like flying free, and who knows what's going to go on next. I like to bring up, just to rattle people's imagination. If you ever see some of my videos, I always bring up how they've cloned people, they've sent light photons back in time, and they've teleported protons. And it's like people can't seem to imagine that these people might have some information that they don't want the public to have. It sounds a little fishy to me. But speaking of the Epstein thing that might interest you, have you taken a look into the island that he was on? Have you seen like those Egyptian obelisks and everything?
Well, okay, so yeah, I didn't get a ton of time to go into that because I was, I was researching a whole bunch of other stuff at the time, and it's so hard to keep up with everything. You tell me what you've seen, and I'll just let me know.
Well, I watched a video of like basically it had like a drone on the island over the island. Which type of things mini Egyptian temple with like kind of like the Egyptian stripes and everything. Like it's clearly Egyptian by looking at it. And when they zoomed the drone in, it had a lock on the outside, not on the inside, which was kind of strange for like a room or a temple or whatever. And they're suggesting that there are like these underground pathways and stuff. And it's just really interesting. If you want, I'll try to find the video and send it to you. But I just figured like kind of where I was going with this is that these people, these elites, they have a lot of knowledge and information that they're keeping occulted from the public, which is kind of what I try to expose to people is like, hey, these people know stuff that we don't. And people haven't really seemed to take me seriously until the Epstein thing, which is kind of great because now I got friends, for like 30 years, like, yeah, all right, something's going on here. Well, all right, well, I'll listen now. Like, what is this,
There's a funny meme. I don't know if you posted it, Justin, but there was a funny meme of, it was like, Epstein dies, like with the little asterisks, and then it shows everyone as Alex Jones, like walking around as Alex Jones.
I did post that one. Yeah.
So now everybody's a conspiracy theorist.
Like a bunch of people talk smack about right about it. Still there? Okay.
Dude, sorry, man. You're breaking up. You're breaking up really bad. Am I coming through okay? I can't hear you.
Oh, okay, there we go. You're back. You're back. Okay, I got you. I didn't
We're
hear
good? Okay, good. Okay.
I
was just saying I couldn't hear you. So let's see. How's people in the chat? Can you hear us? Is everybody, we got a decent connection?
We got Bill Church there.
Still alive, much from California. Okay. Hey, Bill, what's up, man? How's the dog thing going? Bill has a fantastic beard, by the way.
Yeah, Anyways. It's incredible. Yeah, it's incredible. So before it faded out, basically, what I was saying is that Alex Jones, as much as people shit on the guy, he has been right about an awful lot.
That's true.
He just has a habit of sensationalizing everything and making it kind of into the, you believe that? But like, he's been right about a lot. So people should probably like lay off this idea that he's just completely full of nonsense, where it's like, hey, this guy's been accurate about more than the mainstream media has.
Well, and there's a good point, Justin. I mean, people can think what they want about Alex Jones. I mean, I have my own personal opinion. We wouldn't have time to get into it all, but I would say this. Anybody that has come out against the mainstream media on point or what you're getting told in school, or anybody that's a maverick, anybody that's a free thinker, and Alex Jones sensationalizes news because that's what it takes to capture all the sheeple's attention, all the people that are not able to look up from their phones for 2 seconds.
Right.
That's what it takes, okay? So love it or not, that's what it takes to catch your attention, okay? If you were more rational in your thinking, you could get a much more rational person delivering news, but you don't want to listen to those people. I could give you lists and lists and lists of names of people that would sit here very calmly, very eloquently, very breaking down all the facts point by point, but most people wouldn't want to listen to that because they'd be yawning within 2 seconds.
No.
So there's that point. The second point is that how many times has the media, the mainstream media in which we get all of our information and form our opinions by, have been wrong? Not just wrong, but like disastrously wrong. It's a mass destruction.
Absolutely.
Do we need to interact? We need to go through all the shit over the years. So my thing is,
again. Yeah.
People are always quick to criticize someone like Alex or any alternative media journalist. The moment they make a mistake and the moment they get something wrong and look back in the mirror,
Flooded. Yeah, they just get hit.
At all of the news that they put up in lights because it's got the money, it's got the nice polished actors with the perfect makeup, and they don't give a shit, and they walk away. They they drive off in their Porsche. My family's worked in media. I know how it works. And it's just interesting to me. And I have a little theory, Justin. You tell me what you think, and I'd love to hear what people think. But I think any of the subjects we're going to talk about in this stream, whether we're going Epstein, whether we're going ancient history, whether we're looking at religion, whatever you want to do. The thing is that very, very small fraction of information about this, okay? Like if you go in school, even if you go to university and study political science or you study anything, you're getting a very small window into this information and this body of research. And so it takes care. It takes somebody that actually cares enough to go through all the red herrings, to search through the weeds, to try to find the gems. And it's a personal development journey. It means you have to go against the consensus.
Yeah.
This is very difficult for people to do. It means you have to start thinking critically, which is also very hard to do because we're not taught how to do that. Yeah. It means you have to start educating yourself instead of being told what you should be thinking. You have to learn how to think, right? It means you have to constantly challenge your perspective, like even the perspectives that I'll say, and I might speak passionately about them, but I have to constantly keep myself in check and say, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's something I'm missing that I haven't got to that yet. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Or am I biased? Do I want this to be this way, or am I being honest with myself about it? Yeah.
Exactly. Where are my biases? And so this is something that the reason people are so, I think, far away from seeing the truth about right now, geopolitically or socially, or even just having the perspective to understand who they are and what's going on in their own internal mind and spirit, is because of the fact that we have this blind spot. We don't like change. We don't like change when it comes to our environment. We don't like change when it comes to somebody telling us something we haven't heard before. We don't change favorite basketball teams very often, or favorite hockey teams very often, or favorite political parties very often, or favorite whatever, settle in.
Those Mets fans.
And then all this stuff up there just starts to calcify around that view, right? Yeah. So it's hard to get the average person to change their orientation. And so what came out, what was it, 2007 or some shit? I meet this, and I'm like, I'm not going to post about what I'm eating or any of that. Once in a while, you'll get some stuff about me, but mostly it's going to be, this is stuff that's going to make you think, it's going to challenge your idea. I don't know if it's all true or not. You tell me. Don't attack me. Go look into it. Hashtag go look into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's just the way I look at it.
Yeah, you know what you might appreciate, actually, because you were talking about just before about how, it's kind of like a little small fraction they're given to people and like the way they think. One of the ways I started learning about all the stuff that you guys get into on your podcast is, I remember somebody came to me with the 12th Planet book, right? And they were telling me, they had this kind of look in their eye like, dude, there's no way slaves built the pyramids. And, again, it wasn't even from the point of view, like, I didn't want it to be that way. I'm just kind of quick-witted, and like, I just thought at the top of my head, like, well, who's to say that there wasn't some guy that came up with an ingenious way of engineering at that time, and then like the pharaoh or king didn't like it and just got lost to history, right? And my two friends that were like, they read the book, they were like, they didn't really have much of an argument for me. But the difference between me and most people is I picked up the book and read it myself, and when I read it, I was like, oh, okay, now I get what they're talking about. That's the difference. Most people, like you just said, want things to be a certain way. And like, again, my intentions weren't to do that. I was just saying, when there's no way. I don't think there's no way that humans could have built the pyramids. I just don't think there's no way the people that they're telling us could have built those pyramids. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's a lot more to the story they don't want us to know about. And let me ask you, why do you think they wouldn't want us to know about who built the pyramids and how?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, honestly, we did a 4.5-hour podcast, Michael and I, on the pyramids, and that was fantastic. It's so cool. And I'm sitting there just as a fan, this knowledge going, oh, what next is it? And he always surprises me with shit. Like, half the time I don't know what he's going to say, right?
Yeah, he's brilliant.
And then we had two or three follow-up interviews. And we even did an interview with Bernie Taylor, who I have a lot of respect for, although I disagree with him on some points, but that's no big. But we brought another perspective on too. And we were trying to do that. and we're trying to get a hold of this Italian researcher who he actually grew up, and he has some inside connections, and he has a very interesting theory about it. So that we had to reschedule him because the poor guy didn't have an internet connection that would have sustained the show. Right. So we're gonna put him back in the fall. But anyways, I think that when it comes to Egypt, if anybody is in doubt of there being any kind of alternative, or let's just say this, if there's any kind of agenda or conspiracy or any kind of hidden history or mystery, Egypt is where it all starts for you. Okay, now we could get into the idea that there's been there's been antediluvian or pre-diluvian civilizations prior to Egypt. We could get into the fact that no, the Egyptians did not build the pyramids. There's that theory that the idea is that what we call the Egyptian culture and dynasty came in and built around what was already there that was left from something that was much older, right? There's that theory.
Yeah, sure, can I just real quick? What's cool? Isn't there hieroglyphs that go back 36,000 years of dynasties in Egypt? Like they have all these dynasty like hieroglyphs about like something about 36,000 years, and it's like, why are they only telling us about the last 5,000 and swear no, that's it? Where it's just kind of like, clearly this evidence suggests that's not true. Like, why is that? Like, who's doing this? Who's? Oh, by the way, I just want to throw out when Michael calls Graham Hancock Graham Hand-Me-Down, I was fucking dying, dude. I was loving that shit on the interview, whatever he called him, Graham Hand-Me-Down, dude. I was dying. I was like stoned, like laughing my ass off. I was like, yo, that was great. But I'm sorry, continue.
Don't mess with the Irish, okay? Just don't mess with the Irish.
That was great.
They've all got the Blarney Stone. He's got the gift of the gab. He's got the best comeback. Anyways, no, I agree. And you know what? He was actually exposing something very legitimate, where unfortunately, as much as you could say there's been a lot of great work that people like Graham Hancock and others have done, the sad thing is they don't like to reference the people they got their work from. What Michael does and what I'm trying to do in finding out the source researchers, the people on the ground in like the early 1900s and stuff, and like who already formulated these ideas that a lot of modern authors made millions off of without citing any references or like, showing that respect. So that was where Michael's problem was he was like, first of all, I think you're wrong. You're leading this whole thing off track. And second, you're not giving due, which means you're actually you're stealing a body of work that isn't yours, and you're trying to make it look like it's yours and that you came up with it and it's unique, and that's a problem in this field. And let's just be honest about that. And totally. If there's one thing we do on Unslaved is every single episode, Michael goes in and he puts in hours of time to get all the sources of all the things he's been saying and all the things we've been talking about, so that people can go and see exactly. Like the first book he wrote, I think the last quarter of it is all appendices of just sources of just like, here, go read all these books.
Believe it or not, believe it or not, Slave Species of the Gods is actually holding my phone up right now. It's like 2 books below. I got I'm kind of ghetto. I have like a thing of books holding it up, and Michael DeSaurio on Slave Species of the Gods is the book right
I'm the same.
The one that's
mine is yeah, that's cool. I have my Rode microphone box that it came in. I have Secret Teachings of All Ages by Manly Hall,
of all ages,
and the Complete Dictionary of Symbols. And then beside me is Jim Marr's book, Our Occulted History, which is also a fantastic read. God rest his soul. But
rest in peace. Yeah, absolutely.
Let's look at it like I was just saying. For those that are new, just so we can get this finished here, Justin, is that when you look at, if you want to get into something that is going to change your life and change your perspective on history, you just need to start diving into Egypt and get into, we've given so many sources as to where to go. And you'll start to see that when people start to make fun of conspiracy people, oh my God, God forbid human beings would lie and cheat and steal and try to gain advantages, and there's competing agendas and territorial imperatives and hierarchies and racial battles, and all we are is conspiratorial. And so when you go back and you look at it and you go, oh my God, we've been given 2 narratives in history to choose from. We've been given either it was created by a god of pick your religion, or it was Darwinian evolution, it was macroevolution. And the scientists will say, just grant us one miracle. Right. The Big Bang that came out of nothing. Grant us one miracle and we'll explain everything.
Right.
And yet what's funny is that everything came out of nothing. And so you go, well, all right, interesting. So we're two sides to choose from. And these two sides have been battling it out for
Yeah.
freaking eons.
Left
Okay.
and the right brain. Yeah.
And when I started getting into this, I was getting into a lot of debates. That's how I like to learn a subject. I like to see debates
I
between the
completely
top
agree.
thinkers on either side.
I
It'd be
totally
like
agree.
watching a fight, like, because I'm a martial artist,
Yep.
right? If I
Sure.
want to know what martial art is going to win out, the striker versus the grappler, I want to see the world's best striker, who hopefully has some takedown defense, against the world's best grappler, who hopefully has and you want to see
Sure.
which one will work out in that scenario. And so when I
Right.
watch a Sam Harris debate versus a Jordan Peterson, which I got to go see live in Vancouver, which was fantastic, or
Very
you
cool.
go see, I don't know, any debate. And I grew up watching these debates between Jewish rabbis versus imams versus Catholic priests versus Protestants, and you go through it all. And that's how you're going to get a better perspective, because all of us little people here that don't really read anything and don't know anything about it, we like to come out and say, oh, well, this is this is the truth. This is the theory. You guys are wrong about the pyramids. You guys are wrong about Christianity. You're wrong about and it's like, okay, hold on, Peanut Gallery. Where did you qualify your statements and your opinions?
Right.
And
exactly.
guys, I'm including myself in the Peanut Gallery. And I've put probably, I don't know, my entire life into this, okay? And you know what I've seen? You have to come at this with a level of humility and respect that is just, it's so foreign and alien to the average person to do that it doesn't do justice to the subject. So my passion, the reason I created Unslave the way I did, and that I'm constantly up late at night trying to figure out ways to make it better and fix things and adjust things and enhance things, is because I want to do justice to the work, and I'm not even close to what I want, but, and I'm sure that's the same with you, Justin, with your work. I don't want to put something out that's half-assed. I want it to be quality, because I believe that this information and this discussion deserves that. That's what we're doing right now.
Fantastic website. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I appreciate
I've learned
that.
a lot. You guys
And
got me.
so,
I'm sorry. No, I was gonna say you got me like researching like William Blake and all that stuff. I was like, that's why I love what you guys do, because it's less political and it's more about like kind of like the history and a lot of these people that like made the way the world is today that you don't really hear about so much, and all these like famous people, and you guys just break it down for hours on end. Like the Egyptian one you guys did, I watched that shit 2 days in a row. I watched it once myself, and then I watched it in the background while I was playing video games, just to like beat that shit into my head. You know what I mean? But no, it's a fantastic site. Everybody should go check that out. Absolutely. But yeah. So yeah, you want to continue what you're saying? I'm sorry, I kind of cut you off there.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, and I appreciate the shout out. But it's when you start looking into historyology, you look at theology, you look at science. You don't throw it out. You don't throw anything out. You got to look at yourself like a detective here. And one of my favorite, I grew up reading Sherlock Holmes, the Hardy Boys, all that kind of stuff, and just the mindset. And I've interviewed detectives. When you're looking at evidence, and when you're trying to find out who did it, and when you're trying to look at all this stuff, what's your method? And each one of them might have different answers, but the idea is it's based on deep people aren't familiar with. The idea that if you're going to find the truth, you can't just go and try to go, oh, that's the truth, because it feels like the truth. It feels like it's true. That's not how science is done. That's not how detective work is done. That is not how research is done. I'm not have intuition. You have to use both, right? And the idea is you take away what's not true. To go through the process, you got to find out what's not true. Then you're left with only a few options of what could be true, and then you keep weighing evidence against it until you whittle it down to a very valid, at least, hypothesis that you can continually examine, right?
That's called the apathetic method, right? I'm sorry, that's called the apathetic method, right? Just as a quick nod or whatever, I'm a huge video game fan. I've always been. In the latest God of War game for Sony PlayStation, he's got his kid with him in this game, and it's a long game. And throughout the game, he actually teaches him how to think backwards, like the apathetic. Like you see all these like dead, all these like skeletons from dead warriors, and he's like trying to explain, well, if it's not that and it's not that, then what is it? And like you said, they don't teach these things in school. They just want you to repeat things like, oh, this is what it is. Okay, beat that into your head without actually knowing if that's true or not. And that's what happened with me with the pyramids, where I was just kind of like, they're totally fucking lying about all this. Like, wait a minute. And I just dove right in. So you guys were a great help with that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, actually, the God of War game is really good. And it's amazing how so many games and movies are weaving in all these mythological motifs. Like movies right now,
Oh yeah.
that I think they totally screwed up with on the last one. But anyways, all these superheroes are all based on mythological archetypes coming out of the Greek myths, the Sumerian
Right.
myths, the Egyptian myths, the Christian theology through all
Mm-hmm.
around the world. And when you really pay attention to a lot of these stories, especially in the original way that these movies are done, like the original Supermans, the original
Yeah.
the old school versions of these things, you'll start to see the same patterns shown, that they're telling you the same story and mythology.
Yeah.
And I find that interesting, that whoever's in Hollywood, I'm not saying it's all bad or it's all good, they just know this information, lineups around the door
Exactly. It
for the next
resonates.
Marvel movie. There's a
Yep. It
reason why
resonates.
it
Yeah.
just there's something there. And so it does. And there's a reason why, like when they did the Lord of the Rings epic, which is probably my favorite story of all time,
It's a good one. Yeah.
there's a reason that those movies were so big. There's a reason that when Tolkien first wrote those books, it resonated so deeply across the world. And
Well,
it's
yeah.
because even though it was done to explain to people, because if you have any kind of like more sciencey, materialistic type minded people here, they have trouble understanding this. But when you're reading ancient texts and
Yeah.
you're reading myths, they're not lies. They're not just like stories that are
Right.
fantasies that are just coming out of somebody's eye. You just have to understand
They all just happen to make up the same
that
stories. Yeah. With different names. That they just all
yeah,
happen to
exactly.
coincidentally make up
Exactly.
the same
And
themes and the same stories. They just renamed everyone. Actually, if I might just jump in for a second, just
yeah,
what you were saying about the more sciencey type, that's what happened to me when I first learned about the Sumerian tales with the Anunnaki. Like, it just resonated so much. It's like, I just know this is true, like, in my soul. And are you familiar with the Assassin's Creed games at all? Have you ever played those?
oh,
They're
yeah.
actually about,
Oh, yeah.
you ever
Yeah.
heard of this? Yeah. They're all about they're all about the astral memories. Like, you jump into the animus, which is like the what is it, the Greek word for soul or something like that, and then you travel back into the mindset of like your ancestors, and you see it from there. And that's what they're trying to tell you. That's why like those who came before were like 9 to 11 feet tall. And they all have the canonical hats or whatever, and they're trying to be like, wake up, you know what I mean? They're trying to tell you something. It's not just a game, or like you just said, it's not just something that they just made up for fun of it. Like, you realize how ridiculous the lengths that these people would have gone to just make this up for what? Like, we don't do, it's just crazy to think. So please continue.
Well, yeah, no, and it's good. Assassin's Creed, I mean, that can get you into the whole Templar thing. I mean, that's a freaking rabbit hole if you want to get into the history of this stuff. And they go through that in depth, and the different secret orders and secret societies, and the way that they induct people into these things through ritual. The fact that we know that the Templars, when they went over to the Middle East, they started basically hanging out with these Eastern mystics and Frankists and these different people, and they started comparing notes basically. And a lot of this esoteric information is what birthed what we call modern day Freemasonry, and what we also see practiced in the Vatican with all these different Vatican cults. And
this is what the
Italy,
elites are all into.
What, 380? Yeah. Right. So the funny thing is a lot of these people that would scoff at these groups like Illuminati groups and all these groups still exist. They still exist. Like the Knights of Malta, they came out of the Knights Hospitaller. The Hospitallers had a famous feud with the Templars, at least on the surface. The Vatican, at least on the surface.
Right, I know about
there's
that.
a whole history there. And then you go, well, okay, you got to get into all this, and then you got to ask yourself a question. I'm only 37 years old. I've been on this planet since 1982. And when I got here, and you start asking questions, people are giving you answers. And you're like, okay, where are you giving me the answers from? Well, these books, these sources, these people. This is the world. Welcome to Earth, David. This is how it works. And if you just kind of start going, well, yeah, I guess I'll trust you. That sounds about right. Then you'll just be led by the nose the rest of your life. But what I did was I said, hold on a minute. Like, how did you validate your sources? How do you know what you're saying? And when I'd ask people, like, because I was raised in a very fundamentalist Christian religious background, and I would say, like, okay, well, how do you know all of these things about where things happen and how things happen? Like, well, here's the Bible. That's God's word. That's the thing. And I'm like, well, but if I go, like, why are there 60,000 registered denominations of Christianity that are all warring amongst themselves about which is the correct interpretation of the word of God, let alone going to war with all the other religions of the world that are all saying that their prophet is the holy prophet or whatever. And then, just so I can finish this point, if you then go over to the scientific view, where it's like, well, all that stuff's just fairy tales, it has no meaning, we should throw it all out.
Right.
You go, well, where's your Messiah? So, oh, well, here's Darwin, here's Newton, here's all guys, here's our
Right. Don't
priest
question those
class, here's our
guys.
religion,
Yeah.
and we don't want you to deviate. And you're like, but isn't science born out of questioning? Yet we're not allowed to question science
Question.
now.
Yeah.
So
So it
who do you
becomes religion
trust?
too. Yeah.
Who
Absolutely.
do you
Yeah, even
trust? And then you go to
that's you trust
politics. Doesn't
yourself.
matter.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Don't go there to trust
so we're
anybody.
getting there. We're
Sorry. Go
getting
ahead.
there.
I'm
So
sorry.
then
Yeah.
you go,
Yeah.
well, all right. You go, all right. Now I look at politics. In the same shit happens. Right? Sometimes guys
Every
come in and
time.
they make some good things happen. You're like, hey, good
A
for you
little
for
bit.
that.
Yeah.
But you know that those guys don't call the shots, right? Like, so you go, well, then who can I trust? And you know what I think it is? I think there's something bigger happening where each one of us is being called to become self-sufficient to a certain degree. And it's important that we have this question on our minds. And questioning what we think we know, questioning the sources from which we've gotten all of our information and from which we've formulated all of our opinions about ourselves and the world. And, Justin, it's so fun to talk about all these fancy things and the histories and the mysteries. I love it.
Yeah.
But when you really understand why people gravitate towards certain ways of looking at things, you have to factor in psychology. You have to
100%.
factor in where people are at in terms of their own self-knowledge and their view of themselves, the view of yourself, the view of your worth and your status as value is inextricably linked to the choices you're going to make, whether you're going to succeed or fail, what belief systems you're going to have, what political parties you're going to vote for, you're going to allow into your life or dispel from your life. It all comes back to you. So this is why I say this is a journey of discovery. And this is something you have to take with humility. But you also have to develop a level of confidence because that's going to get you through it. Because I'll tell you, most people will tap out of going down this rabbit hole with us. And that's fine. And that just means they're not ready yet. But I believe that it's important to do this. It's something that's very healthy for you. Don't get schizophrenic about it. But at the same time, there's nothing wrong with questioning what you've been told. And I advocate for that because I don't like seeing people too confident with their opinions that are based on
completely agree. I completely agree. Actually, if I might just jump in, I recently basically donated something to a friend. He made a post about it, and I was attacked by a group of these people from like the Great Work or whatever, who the same thing. They have these beliefs, and that's what they are. The natural law, and I'm totally for natural law, but again, their interpretation of it is just their interpretation of it. And I'm like, well, how do you know that? And they can't really give me any answers. And one of this chick basically had said to me that we can't know for certain that what our origins are. Like, we speculate or whatever, kind of like the Anunnaki thing. But then the information that allegedly comes from the source that we can't know 100% is completely unquestioned, and we don't know that for certain when these things didn't even align with it. Like, how can you be so sure? And of course, I just get written off, or that's ridiculous. It's like, you're just being religious too. Could it be that you were like disillusioned with your religion, like the first one you were told that raised, and you just gravitated towards a new one? Like you said, I'm open for questioning everything. That's the most important thing. Like, I question my own beliefs all the time, and like you said, I think it makes you more healthy to do that. Like, like Socrates, I think you actually corrected me on this or whatever, it was longer, but he has a quote that's like, I'm the smartest man in the world because I know that I know nothing. And you said that was from like a paragraph that they kind of just drummed it down into something smaller, right? See, I didn't know that. So there you go. You know what I mean?
Right. But I agree with the statement though. And Socrates, I mean, geez, like, I don't even think people can grasp the intellects that we all, that we are looking at amazing information forward. And, you go, all right. And I always say that too. Am I believing something that's false or whatever? And you go, well, we're all here on this ball flying through space, unless you're a flat earther, then it's different. But either way, you believe that you're here and we are sort of subject to the will of nature to a large degree. And there's a lot of things that we don't have control over, and we can't go back in a time machine and just find all the answers and figure it all out. And yet there's enough breadcrumbs there, burnings of books, all the wars, the expansions of empires, the destruction of entire peoples and genocides and blah, 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 all the lies and horrible things we've done to each other. Even with all of that, there's still fractions of information there that are, if you know how to follow those clues and you have some brain cells left and you have some care and some discipline to become knowledgeable about these things, then it's amazing what you can actually discover, and it changes your perspective of the world.
And you feel
and I'll
it
just
too.
add this,
you feel
that
it
you know, as
internally.
someone that's, you feel it, you definitely do. And when I was going through my martial art career, and I've trained martial arts since I was 9 years old. I talk about it all the time because I'm a freak about it. But it's because that's my passion, all right? That was my vehicle. That was my religion, all right?
Right.
And what I said was, you know, like every time I get on the mat and I'm about to teach my students or teach some competitors that are getting ready for a tournament or a fight or something, I constantly have to be in a place where I question if what I'm doing is the right way. Did I help them with their doing enough cardio? Did I get them training the right techniques? Did they work on their, you know, positions enough? I have to live in that world. And in martial arts, there's no bullshit. See, in the world of academia, these guys can make up sitting in their heated rooms and their nice fancy plush whatevers, and they can come up with all kinds of crazy theories, man. But nothing really punishes them for wrong ideas and bad ideas. Whereas in martial arts, it's real. If I tell you if I teach you the wrong way,
I see what you're saying.
Then you'll expose me. And I'll expose myself as not knowing what I'm doing. And so you have to constantly be tested. And so that's where I came from a ground.
That's a really good point.
I came from a place. Everything has to survive. It has to survive fire testing. It has to survive critiques. It has to. That's why I will engage in debates on my Facebook page from time to time when I feel like it, or I'll do. And I don't mean anything against anybody. I don't want to hurt. I'm not here to be an asshole. But if you want to come on my page and spar with me, I'm in. All right. But what it is it helps me. It helps me learn more about what I'm doing. I also want to know if there's something that I might be missing, and I'm cool with that. You know what I mean? But you know, and I just feel like the way people go about discovering information and forming opinions is just, you know, they're sitting there on their couch eating some nachos or something, and I just flip. Look at that article on my Facebook. Look, it says that Epstein was he's committed suicide, and I should never question it. Oh, that's cool. And they keep going, and then they're at the barbecue, and you went and you did looked at all the updated data, and you're sitting there with more information, and that Joe Schmo is going to be the one to sit there and be like, you're the crazy one questioning things. You're like, you did literally 2 seconds of research into this. What are you doing,
meanwhile,
man?
He's got the tinfoil.
Now, maybe I am wrong. No,
I'm just saying, meanwhile,
I'm just saying maybe I am wrong. But
the
chicken is the conspiracy theorist. No, but no, but what I'm saying, I'm not trying to say, again, I'm not trying to come across like I know everything or whatever. It just means like, I just want to see people care more about their opinions and where their information comes from. That's all. I'd like to see teachers care more.
Everyone wants to have one.
Everyone wants to have one. No one wants to do what it takes to have a good one.
Exactly. And you can kind of tell when someone's just like actually critically debating you or has like a question or, oh, that's different. It's like, no, wrong. It's like this without actually like, well, do you just want it to be that way or do you think it's actually that way? You know, I run into these people all the time, and like you said, I can't keep all the messages at this point. But like I said, like, do you really believe that like take the Epstein thing, you know, which is just a good example. It's just like, if you know that they've lied about this, and this, why would you trust them in this situation? And I can never get any good answers. It's like the floor. It's like
what
the
else are we being told?
Yeah. I love the fluoride thing because it's like, so you mean to tell me with all these lies and everything, and then you mean to tell me that the government, you think that the government cares about your teeth? Like if you have like jaywalk, they'll give you a ticket and you don't pay it, they'll knock your teeth out. But you think they're going to this much trouble to fluoridate your teeth because they care about you? It's like, what are you, fucking stupid? Like, no, like there's more to the story there. And then you look into the history of that, you know? It's like, come on, guy, you know? I look stupid, but I'm not as stupid.
Well, this is why when you look up any of these things, dude. You know, it's funny you bring that up because they can't let any one of these cats out of the bag publicly. Okay, that's why to me the Epstein thing was interesting, and there's been many other things. I mean, come on, we can go on a whole list of things that at one time, like everybody questioned. A lot of people questioned what happened on 9/11. A lot of people questioned what happened with the war in Iraq. A lot of people questioned Watergate. A lot of people questioned like a lot of things, man. But this was bigger, and because we live in an age of information where we can share information like this, and this, it flies around really, really fast. And I think that's why we live in an age, coincidentally, that they're trying to really stifle free speech and go after censoring certain people, and everything's offensive now, and everything is racist, and you're like, hold on a minute, did you know that I had somebody send me an article? Okay, because I'm on the show Ancient Aliens, and I've been on there for probably 4 seasons, and they sent me an article saying Ancient Aliens is racist. And I was like,
Really?
whoa, what? And I went and did a live a couple, like, I don't know, 6 months ago or whatever on this, but it was just an interesting thing because I'm like, what do you mean it's racist? And you get into the way they write these articles, and it's like, oh, because these people are talking about the possibility that extraterrestrials visited the planet in the ancient times and may have had a hand in producing these things, they're stealing it from this African culture or this culture or that culture. They're stealing the prize from them to try, and so that's why it's all concocted by these right-wing Nazis. And you're like, what? Whoa, that's not at all that. Actually, if you think about that, that would be speciesist, because that would mean we don't know who built the pyramids, because there's no Egypt. There's not a hieroglyph in Egypt that claims ownership over the pyramids.
Right.
There's not even a hieroglyph within the pyramids.
Any of the pyramids. Yeah.
They'll tell you. They'll tell you how they eat. They'll tell you how they shit. They'll tell you how they have sex. They'll tell you how they brew beer.
Nothing.
But nobody's going to be like, oh, I built that shit. Nobody says it. So you go, okay. Well, if what we're saying is racist, to just question and go, hey, maybe we were visited. Okay.
Yeah.
That would be against the human race. That's not against anything, and that's not even against the human race. That's just the way these people think, and so it's just it's ludicrous to me the way that
No, I'm sorry. No, when you first said they said ancient aliens were racist, I thought you were covering more on the green aliens than the grays. You know, I was just like, what the fuck are these people talking about? It's like, wait a minute, that's ridiculous. I'm sorry. I'm stupid with the jokes.
They didn't say they didn't. They didn't say the aliens themselves were racist. Although I bet you that's why the aliens ain't showing up. That's why they're not coming. Everybody's like, why aren't they that way? Oh, that's why they don't want to be called racist. Because that's what would happen. They'd be.
What gender is this? Well, I'm sorry. Yeah.
They're like, we have 17 genders on our planet.
You know, the little grays are a little. Sorry. Anyway.
Anyways, what I was trying to say was that this is just. It was an interesting way of seeing how we've gotten to a point of insanity that I think we have to get to. I think the conversation has to get that crazy in order for us to maybe go reset and kind of go, all right, it's going to be a fad, all this social justice stuff, and everybody's this, and it's this, I think it's going to be a fad that's going to have its day. It's going to phase out because people are responding to it. Nobody feels that way. And I think that it's just getting ridiculous, and it's actually messing up people that are trying to do real research. You know what I mean?
Did you see the video? Did you see the video of they had the transgender teaching 6-year-olds to twerk? You know, in all seriousness,
that stuff's getting me so pissed off these days. It's just not even funny.
All jokes aside, for me, it's just like it's gotten to the point where I've been yelling about these types of things since I was like 19. I just turned 36 2 weeks ago. It's gotten to the point where now, thank you. You have transgender people, and again, it's not about the sex. It doesn't matter who it is. But why are they teaching 6-year-olds to twerk in public school? And why does it have to be a transgender person? Isn't this a little strange? If you would have said to somebody like 10 years ago, they would just, you're a fucking, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And now I'm watching videos of it on YouTube. It's like, you still think I'm making all this stuff up? You still think I'm full of shit? Like, it's, it's outrageous. It's just outrageous. I'm sorry. But yeah.
It's crazy. And I mean, we could go forever on that. I mean, I did a video on it. I think there's a lot more behind this whole explosion of the whole transgender thing.
Totally
and again,
agree.
I don't have a thing in the world against a transgender person or a homosexual person.
Nothing.
When I start to see things getting politicized, though, that's where I start to have questions, because that's the problem, right? When I start seeing them saying, okay, well, we want to take freedoms away from you. We want to start teaching your children at the age of 6 that there's no such thing as a boys and girls. We want to start doing, and then I'm like, whoa, hold the bus. Yeah. Like, can we talk about this? About it? Because if you talk about it, you're a bigot. And you're like, wait, whoa, I was just asking a question. Can I ask a question? Can we maybe have a discussion about child psychology? Can we go back 50 years of documented research on child psychology? And can we please have that discussion before you just open up and do these library readings with transgender people? And these kids are sitting there going, I don't know what the fuck is that? Right?
Yeah.
And you go, okay, listen, and that's all we're asking for, people like me. And
that's why I've been doing the jokes on it.
The world's also gone crazy, so what are you going to do with it?
Yeah. No, to be honest with you, that's actually why I started publicly mocking them, just so I could have a conversation. Because anytime I just bring up hey, can we talk about this? Like you just said, and people you're a bigot. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll show you how ridiculous I could be. And that's when I start throwing jokes at these people, like Super Mario but with his fireballs. Like, you want it? Here, let's talk about this. Or I'm just gonna keep making fun of you until you talk to me about this. And that's the thing. Like you said, I have nothing against
Justin, are you sensationalizing the news?
Maybe a little.
Are you sensationalizing the news? Oh
Yeah,
my
it's just
goodness,
how could you
man.
do that?
You must be an
Oh,
Illuminati
crazy.
shill. Maybe Bob was right. Bob was
Oh,
right. You
yeah,
should be locked
yeah.
up.
I know, I know. I'm just here to cause chaos. You know,
He's
that's it.
listening
A
right now,
dark
by the way.
chaos wizard. Yeah, he said I need to
I
interview a
see
real man, but
Bob said this. Bob said, I challenge you to it, Maple Boy. Oh, it's on,
maybe.
Bob.
Oh, that's a
Bring it.
Canada.
Bring it,
Oh, that's a
mofo.
Canada disc
Bring
right
your
there.
sandals. Bring
Right.
your sandals and your seatbelt and go park somewhere. Put your seatbelt on. And I'm in.
Yeah,
And
Bob,
I'll
take
bring
off the
maple
sandals.
syrup. Don't make me bring the maple syrup.
His shit is organic too. He's coming from up top, so what was it? The Rodney Dangerfield
Oh,
joke. Yeah, so the Canada Dry went up there, something like that. I was watching it the other night, but yeah, like you were saying, that's the problem. Is like you can't even have a conversation, and it's clearly an agenda. Like that's the thing. I've never even seen any of these people be insulted. Like people make fun of me. I encourage people to make fun of me. Like you don't see me out in the street. I haven't gotten laid in forever. You know what I mean? It's just and like I said, everybody's so sensitive to everything. So that's why I'm just kind of brutal on Facebook. Like I just say whatever it is without because again, I know my intentions are pure. I know my heart is pure. And like I said, like why can't we have fun doing it? That's the problem. People can't take a joke anymore. Like that's the thing. That's why like that meme you posted the other day about the Adam and Eve thing or whatever. Like they had 3 sons. It's like, well, it's 2019. Anything can happen now. Like I identified as whatever it is. It's
oh, did you
ridiculous.
see? I'm getting swarmed by a lot of fundamentalist Christians right now about that. Say, hey,
Oh, really?
my Christian brothers and sisters, I got nothing against, there's a lot of stuff with the Bible that we're going to disagree about. I'm not someone that's trying to poo-poo the Bible or whatever. I'm not taking shots. But at the same time, all the meme did was ask you to think about it. That's all it was. All we
That's
said was
it.
think about it. And when
What's
I
wrong
see
with
people, I'll
that?
react with like an allergic, like, when they do
Right,
that
right.
shit, when all you did was ask them to think about it, that's when I
Yeah,
have a problem. That's extreme
exactly.
behavior. I'm not going to do that to you. You can come and challenge. I'd love to have a discussion with you. Maybe I'm wrong. But
Right.
when I see this like knee-jerk emotional response, I know we're dealing with psychology and a level of neurosis that, you need to check yourself with that stuff. And I'm saying that to me too. I got to check myself too. We're all human.
Agreed.
We all
Myself
feel that.
too.
We all have those mistakes. And I've done it too. But I'm saying, I'm trying to be objective here for a moment. If
Yeah.
we're going to have a discussion and understand, do we care about the truth or do we care about being right? That's
Right. That's
the
the most
question.
important thing.
For
Yeah.
me, I like being right. I love the feeling of winning. I love
Sure.
but
You
I
have to.
honestly, it doesn't mean anything to me more than discovering something that is actually true.
Right.
That feeling is just, you feel like
I think it's the most
it's no other
important thing
feeling you
there
can
is.
describe.
Like I don't
Yeah.
pray to a God. I don't pray to a God. I just look at the truth as God. It's just like this is what is.
Yeah.
The problem is that again we have these like limited perspectives, and then there's like you said, there's all these things coming at us trying to like sway us away from what actually is, what's actually true. And like I said, you kind of have to like dig through it, and then you have to ask yourself like, well, why are they trying to make it so difficult to figure out what the truth is? Unless there's an agenda and people don't want you knowing what the truth is. Because when you know what the truth is, or at least I think you and I are a lot closer to the truth than the average person, it's interesting to say the least and a bit darker than, what most people want to, like sunshines and rainbows and all that stuff, So I think that's why.
Well, yeah, it's true. You're so right. And you hit on that nerve again of just, the reason people have that knee-jerk reaction to anybody that's challenging a paradigm is because people don't like that. Unless you are seasoned towards that, unless you actually realize the benefit of that. See, I'm the kind of person that I a long time ago figured out that it's more important to go through that legitimate suffering, like Carl Jung about legitimate suffering. There's illegitimate suffering, which is when natural law is broken or whatever, and someone is aggressing on you and opposing their will. But then there's legitimate suffering, meaning that there's the suffering that happens when it's cold outside. Nobody likes, I'm from Canada, of course,
Right.
I'm happy to live in a place where I don't get a lot of snow now, but I grew up in Saskatchewan, man, like, minus 50, snow up to your eyeballs. That's just the way it is.
Oh, wow.
That's uncomfortable, right? And, but at the same time, it's something that, obviously, look what we've developed in the West, even though you could have said, oh, it's a barren wasteland. You could never have culture there. You could never build a civilization. Well, here we are. And, we wouldn't have invented hockey if we were uncomfortable with winter. Think of all the things, like even exercise. Exercise is uncomfortable. But what's the benefit of exercise?
Totally worth
You
doing.
increase your lung capacity. You have a healthier heart. You're stronger. There's more endorphins pumping in your brain.
Exactly.
You are more. You feel like you're accomplishing something. So it's a feeling of self worth and esteem. And actually, there's a lot of psychologists like have gone into the idea that a lot of your psychological problems can actually be fixed by body work. This comes from these guys that do Tai Chi and martial arts and all that. It's uncomfortable.
My grandma just
but it
taking
has a
it,
benefit.
actually.
That's worth it.
Yeah, my grandma started taking Tai Chi.
She's doing Tai Chi?
Says she feels fantastic. She started a couple of months ago, and she's like all into it now. She just started, yeah. So it's kind of cool to see because, like I said, she turned 80,
your grandma
so
sounds
she's getting
awesome.
into new stuff. Yeah, she's good people, absolutely.
Good for her.
Yeah.
My grandma's
fun,
too.
like
My grandma's a machine. She's like 90. She's 90 something, 94, 96 in there, and she goes to the swimming class. She goes to do like weights and like all. I'm like, wow, look at that. Who's got the excuse to be sitting there doing nothing? And I mean, that's just a part. And then what about? So we're talking about working out and physical exercise, being uncomfortable. But what about when you're thinking in a different way? Like if you're a Christian and you take the Bible and you read it the way you've been told to read it and interpret it, and then you sit down beside someone like me that's going to say, well, I can take those same verses and I can reference a totally different narrative for you, okay? And maybe that would be healthy, right? And then maybe we could compare and contrast with other ancient texts and see what other people think. And maybe we can find a commonality that will help us understand what really happened in history.
Yeah.
And when I see people go, no, he's blah, 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 then I'm like, okay, well, there's no hope, and there's no hope.
Right, there's no agenda.
Right?
Yeah, isn't Jesus Christ even based off like Adad, Adonis, Alcides, Baal, Crete, Davta, Dionysus, Eros, Horus, Indra, Krishna? Like, there's just a whole list, and they have all the same attributes,
impressive.
basically. Thank you. I believe it or not, I actually have this ridiculous long joke where I list like all the sun gods. Like there's like another 30 of them or whatever like that. What I actually do is I compare the story of Jesus Christ to Super Mario Brothers 2, because if you ever played the original, oh my God. Hear me out for a second. So here's the premise: is basically like basically Super Mario Brothers 2 wasn't actually a Mario game. In Japan, it was a game called Doki Doki Panic. But because of the success of the first game here in America, they're like, we got to get another game out quick. So what they did is a palette swap. So they just plopped the Mario characters in over the other game and just sold it off to Americans, kind of like the story of Jesus, where it's just like, we'll just do a palette swap, we'll plop them in there and just sell it off to the masses. So I have this whole skin on it. It's pretty good. Thank you. I'm stupid.
Have you ever listened? Have you ever read any of Ralph Ellis's books?
No, I know the name from you
times.
guys. I know the name from you guys. I'm not sure if I've ever read it. I'm kind of behind on the reading.
An interesting take. Yeah, get that,
what's that?
Kindle working, man. You should see my Kindle. It's loaded right up all the time. But anyways, he has a very interesting take on the historical account of the Jesus figure. Right. It's a totally different spin, and the evidence is overwhelming. Okay, number one.
Yeah.
And then number two, when you also look at it from the esoteric perspective, and you realize we're talking about the sun, and the reason the number 12 keeps showing up, you've got the 12. Look at it like this. Okay, we could go over you have 12 cranial nerves in your head. The ancient Egyptians used to believe that you had 12 selves. There you go, LGBT people. The ancient Egyptians, man. But there was a different way of interpreting it, okay?
Yeah.
It was a different way. It was talking about consciousness. It was talking about the divisions of it. No, it's talking about the divisions of the house of your mind and your consciousness, right? And they also believe that, because we've been doing a lot of stuff recently on astrology, but not from the perspective that these are like magical rocks in space that are putting these magic beams on the planet that are changing everybody's destiny. That's bullshit. The real astrology was the idea that man is the measure of the universe. Okay, so the proportional ratio of your body, the fact that you have 5 fingers on each hand, you have 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 lips, 2 sets of teeth, 2 hemispheres of the brain with the golden bridge that connects the two. They operate in different capacities. You have 12 cranial nerves that connects everything together. And then there's a reason that Jesus had 12 disciples, and there were 12 tribes of Judah, and that we have 12 signs in the zodiac, and that there's 12 different proportions of the body. They believe that all those astrological signs like Pisces and Capricorn and all that is all just different elements of the body, and that each property has a different corresponding nature to it with all the other properties. And that if we look at that old Hermetic principle of as above, so below, as within, so without, as the universe, so the soul, right? That comes out of Egypt. And when you look at it from that perspective, you realize that we live in a fractal universe. and you start reading people like Walter Russell and Nikola Tesla and all these different great thinkers,
different layers
and you
stuff,
compare their work, you compare their work to the Lubitsch guys and all the way back to the Hermeticists, you'll start to see that what we start with that, and you go to read the Book of the Dead and you read all that stuff, and then come back and read the Bible. Oh my God, you have a totally different spin now.
See where it all came from.
And you're missing a key, and I'll tell you about the reason. Because you were asking about the reason why, right? So think about it. Knowledge is power. Would we agree?
Absolutely. Well, applied knowledge.
Is whoever has the most knowledge, applied knowledge. Okay. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So to me, knowledge, gnosis. Okay.
Sure.
Knowledge is power because if it's applied, it can be used. It can be used to create, or it can be used to destroy. Okay. Now, when you look around at the average amount of people that you interact with on a daily basis, you will see a mixed bag. You'll see people that you know are just there. Hey, that Johnny's got a heart of gold. You know, he's always trying to do good. He's always a good guy. And then you got some people that are like, that guy's a bit of a dick. You know, he'll take whatever he can get. You give him an inch, he takes a mile. Okay.
Right. I got a few of
we
those.
See people. Have you been screwed over by people you know in your life, Justin, at some point?
Every day.
Every day.
I look forward to it tomorrow. Yeah.
Exactly, right? I've been screwed over. Everybody listening has been screwed over, okay? So we've conspired against each other. Why? Because we all have an agenda. Everybody has a self-interested agenda. Don't bullshit yourself. Nobody's as altruistic as they like to pretend, all right?
Exactly.
So the question is, how do we make philosophy work? How do we make society work? We have to build it off of how human nature actually is in the real world, not some pie-in-the-sky, socialist utopian bullshit. It has to be real, okay? Putting that aside, coming back to my point, right? Yeah, exactly. When you come back to it, you say, all right, so if we know that amongst ourselves, low-level, average, everyday people, we're kind of trying to make our way work and have our agenda fulfilled on an everyday basis, what makes you think that at the highest levels of power in the world, we're talking generational wealth, that's something that you or I or pretty much everybody you know will never understand in their life.
Right.
Generational wealth. Okay. Right. And I'm not saying every wealthy person that has generational wealth is an evil bastard. That's not true. Sure. There's a lot of that bullshit out there too. That's not true. Sure. Just because you're wealthy and have money and want it, that doesn't mean you're evil. Exactly.
Socialist propaganda is what that is.
Exactly. What it means though is that when somebody has that kind of power, they're obviously going to do what they can to protect it. Exactly. And if we look at like the example of the mafia, right? Do you agree that the mafia exists?
Yeah, absolutely. I live close to Howard Beach, so yeah, you know.
I had a mafia front business running beside my dojo, and I had all kinds of stuff going on there, and I've seen it. There's the triads. There's all these gangs that we know of. They're in the movies and the television shows. Nobody has a problem talking about that. But guess what? It used to be a conspiracy theory to talk about the mafia until they were brought before federal hearings. It all got exposed.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, oh yeah, nobody wanted to concede that there was this, what was it, out of Sicily, the La Cosa Nostra and all that kind of shit. Nobody wanted to admit to that. And then everybody watched the Godfather movies, you know.
Like, now we know.
Now we know. Al Pacino, he blew the whistle. But no, of course we know that there's organized crime. And then you go, okay, well, how do these organized criminals continue to exist to this day? We've known about it for how long now? 60 years? How come they continue to exist? The government and the NSA, they can put a spy satellite up your ass. They know if you have colon cancer or not from space.
Right.
Yet they can't find the mafia.
I made a post about that like 2 weeks ago about like, it's like, wait a minute, like, while Jeffrey Epstein was on suicide watch, they weren't able to locate him or anything like that, but they have satellites that can watch me jerking off from space. Like, something about that doesn't really fly. I don't know, like, call me crazy, but yeah, that's like kind of like what you just said about like all these people, like they don't want to. It's like they don't want to believe certain things. Like the idea that the Clintons would, what were they up to, like 60 of their friends just mysteriously died? Like, they would never do that. Right. There you go. They were above the mafia. Like, that's what I mean. It's just like, so it's okay to talk about the mafia, but the Clintons would never do that. I had one of my closest friends actually like disband me for almost 2 years when the Pizzagate scandal broke. And I was just kind of like trying to allude to my friend, like, hey, this Hillary Clinton character might not be who she's saying she is. And this is like one of my closest friends. Looked like I lobbed a shotgun at him, like, let's go. I'm like, I'm just asking you to consider that, like, this woman might not be who she says. You look at me like, how dare you? It's just like, you've never met this woman. You were never going to meet this woman. She doesn't care about you. I've been friends with you since we were like 16. Why would you not trust me? It's because they don't want to believe this stuff. They don't want to believe the darkness, you know? So,
well,
yeah. Like
and you said it right. That's it. And that's where we could go through all these examples of stuff. And I was even going to take it all the way up to the fractals of, you know, what's going on in Rome and you know, with some of these secret organizations, and then getting into, you know, you start talking about secret society. So the mafia is no longer secret. They operate on the fringes of society. Everybody knows there's a black market. Everybody knows there's a pedophile sex trade slave ring. Everybody knows that there's all kinds of evil, dark shit going on. But people won't accept the fact that it happens at the highest level, and I'll tell you why.
Right.
It is the same reason people will look at me funny in the face when I suggest that maybe in ancient times, what 30,000 different ancient texts are talking about with advanced beings coming to this planet and interfering with the Earth, that maybe they have something else they're trying to tell us. People look at you crazy because it's threatening to their position, because human beings are calibrated to believe that we are the apex of creation, and that we're amazing. I'm not saying we're not special, but like, okay, I mean, in comparison to ants, okay, we look at ants like, oh, it's fucking ants, get off me, ants, stop coming on my picnic shit, right? But at the same time, you're like, well, but you know, to ants, human beings are just like a second thought. Like, they don't even, we're not even in their sphere of understanding, okay? And when you look at, when you start to look at all this stuff, we like to feel like we are the dominant species on this planet. And that means that we kind of have an ego problem. And we need to address that, because I think that, forget the alien thing, just think about it in a human capacity. We don't even like admitting that there's someone smarter than us, or more talented than us, or more muscular than us, or more whatever. We don't like that.
I have to deal with this all the time.
Right, because you're just freaking jacked, man. Like, stop doing this workouts. You're killing me here. You're killing me. But no, but I'm just saying that we have to remember that is a huge factor here, is that we're dealing with people on a psychological basis here. It's not just as easy as going, hey, here's all this evidence and information. I could plop it right on your desk and you could know for sure something. And people are like, no, I checked Snopes and Wikipedia told me.
Where would we get the truth? Where would we get
that
the
you're
truth
crazy?
Not for Snopes, yeah. See,
what would we do without Snopes?
Right. See, like you said before, you have to care, and if you don't care, you're never gonna get there. See, what happened with me was, like I said, I kept doing more and more research until I stumbled upon like the Sumerian, like Anunnaki thing with all the 30,000. I think there are more now. I think they like find new tablets every day or whatever it is. But like I said, like once I got to that, it just like that makes an awful lot more sense than anything else I've ever heard.
Right.
Yet it's still somehow very similar to both sides of the paradigm too, to a degree. So it's like, I think there might be something to that. Yeah, good.
Yeah. Well, let me do this, if you don't mind, right? Because I know you wanted me to talk about some ancient stuff, right? And we'll go into this a little bit, because there's a really good book by Otto Binder and Max Flint, who are, they're very well esteemed. This was written back in the 70s or something like that. And they asked some very important questions of the scientific and religious community when it comes to the way they've built their entire paradigm, okay? Because all the scientific theories that we're talking about now are based on older theories, okay? And what's interesting in science is they're having difficulty today replicating studies that were done years ago. So modern scientists are having difficulty replicating studies done by previous scientists.
NASA can't even get back to the moon.
But, well, apparently that's bullshit. But anyways,
okay.
Welcome to my evil moon base. But anyways, so this book, and I'll post a link to it. I've been talking about it because I've been reading it again. It's just amazing because it's the question that helps you understand the answer. Okay, and we might not have the answer to these questions, but these are some interesting questions. Let me rattle a few of them off for you. Okay,
go for it. We
have some unexplained things with, say, for example, the greater size of the brain of prehistoric man compared to modern man. Little things like that. Why is it that an analysis of the 6 spreading movements of primitive man indicates that 3 of these spreading movements have come from Asia Minor? Okay, so like why? And if that's the case, why then do we have people with white skin, yellow skin, brown skin, red skin, black skin? Why are we such a mixture of breeds in comparison to all the other creatures we supposedly evolved from? Why is there's a lack of explanation in the scientific literature for man's greater intelligence arising strictly out of evolution? Because it's not that we just have greater intelligence. We have vastly greater intelligence.
Yeah, it's not
vastly
a little bit,
greater.
it's drastic.
Not to say we use it all the time, but
Yeah.
compared to chimps, okay, they're still trying to figure out what a fork is, and we're like throwing forks at dartboards, okay,
Right.
and landing probes on Mars. So, you know, then you got the lack of exploration for man's greater brain weight compared to other animals, okay, because you got to remember how evolution tries to make it look. A magical splash happened in some primordial soup that created an effect that started the single-cell organisms that spread out and boom, and all of a sudden, blah, 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 everything's perfect, implicate order, okay?
Yeah.
Without any mistakes. And here we are. And so you go, well, I've heard a good explanation of that, which is basically like, well, the chances of this happening are the same chances of randomness that would happen if a tornado went through a junkyard and magically assembled a jumbo 747.
Yeah. Yeah,
okay?
it's ridiculous.
That's where it's at. Okay, that's where it's
really
at.
Is. Yeah.
It really is. And again, science says, grant us one miracle and we'll explain everything.
But science
what are
doesn't
some
want
other good
miracles.
ones? Yeah. We have the tool mystery. Why were we, we have shaped tools invented and used solely by all species of early ape men, which are hominids, but never by any other animals, including pongids, which are true apes. To this day, we don't see an evolving ape. We don't have one example. We don't have missing links. Everything shows up in the archaeological record.
We've also
fully
evolved
formed.
backwards too. Like if you look like the same idea that we have like the hair on our chest instead of our backs, which would for the elements would be a lot, it would make a lot more sense if we had hair on our backs. Like we're totally out of line.
Or
with
the top knot, the top.
Nature.
Why do we have the top hair? For what reason do we have that? Why do we have?
I didn't even consider that. Yeah.
Yeah, like you can even get into the mystery of the human eye. The human eye is that's a rabbit hole. If you study the human eye compared to everything else, it's amazing. We don't have it.
You got to put me on. Yeah, I'm not sure what you're talking about.
I'll send you some shit. Basically, so we have really shitty night vision.
Right.
We have poor depth perception. There's some things that we have negatives in, but the things we have positives in don't match the way the evolutionary pattern happened for all the other apes and all the other things we supposedly evolved
I see
from.
what you're saying.
So it's just there's some conundrums there. Okay, the idea of civilization, okay, the civilizational mystery. Why did the Homo branches of both Neanderthal and Cro-Magnon, who never had brain cases larger, or who had brain cases larger than modern man, okay, so think of this, Neanderthal and Cro-Magnon had brain cases larger than us, okay, yet never, through a period of 60,000 years, they create civilization, and they remained as brutes. Okay.
Right, the entire time.
So what happened to them? What was different about them as opposed to our unique blending of upright standing apes? Okay, and I know there's all these science people in there trying to go through this.
Yeah, and I just want to toss in the idea, too, that the first civilization that we're at least allowed to know about is ancient Sumeria. And these people just, out of nowhere, they figured out how to build, like, libraries and sewer systems, and they had all these the governments and all this. And how did they just figure this out one day without anything to base it off of? You know what I mean? Like, just doesn't work out the way things work. It just doesn't make any sense unless we look into the alternative stuff.
Into the alternative stuff, exactly. And I'll get to some pyramid stuff that I promised you in a bit. But the idea here was like we have, we have the mental phenomena. Like think about it. Like why is it that no ape brain, according to exhaustive texts, display the fantastic higher qualities of man's brain, such as genius, imagination, scientific inspiration, and less flatteringly, schizophrenia? Why are we the only species that suffers from schizophrenia?
That's pretty funny.
Why are we the only species? Why are we the only species that kills for pleasure? Right. Why are we the only species that because all of the species kill for? I mean, they've shown some examples of apes beating each other and stuff, but nothing compared to what we've done.
Right.
We're blowing each other up with atomic weapons. Okay.
Right.
The way we think, the mythological. We form myths. We have this need for religion. We have a need to derive meaning from life. No other animal thinks in that level. They don't need to derive meaning. Their meaning is get up, kill something, eat it, fuck something, shit on something, go back to sleep. That's life, okay? Yep. Humans build pyramids. Difference, okay?
Sounds easier.
And dude, I seriously, this whole question, these questions in this book, and I'll put a link in after this chat.
Sure.
They go through a whole chapter. And I'm not even giving you the most impressive ones. I just want to give you a little introduction to the idea that these questions are important. And I think it's important to look at them through different lenses. And then when we show up at the pyramids, okay, and we just look at the technological aspect of it. We did a show talking about the aestheticness of it, the beauty of it, the psychological, spiritual meaning of it, the alignment with the stars, all that. But just, think of the basic things like, when you have these, when you look at satellite pictures of the pyramid, the apex of the pyramid, when you look at the apex to the base of the pyramid, it's only off the base 1/4 of an inch.
Yeah, right.
That's not done.
About that thing.
That's
How did
not
they
done.
do that?
That's
Like,
not done. Even in the
and
best,
why?
even the best constructed structures on the planet, like satellites in Portugal or whatever, they don't have that level of engineering accuracy. And we're talking about how they took multi-ton stone blocks
Yeah,
from
thousands of
quarries
pounds.
miles and miles away over
Yeah,
over water. Okay,
right.
and we're told by mainstream archaeology, oh, the Egyptians were not a seafaring culture. Okay, so then how did they port all these multi-ton
Right.
stones? Oh, well. In that case, they
Yeah.
built some boats and
Actually,
they took all these
something.
multi-ton.
Yeah, something you might appreciate actually is I was like brainstorming a joke about the exact situation with like how they built the pyramids, and well, I was just also like just to add to the difficulty of the fact that there's like no food or water around. On top of that, the only thing you can actually really eat for nourishment are cactuses that are covered in spikes. You know, just to make things even more difficult than they already are. You know, like let's just
Well,
like it's ludicrous to think.
and it gets worse and worse the more you look at it. So you go, okay, so
Yeah.
then they used rollers. They took logs, they
Yeah.
cut down trees
Where'd they get those?
in the desert,
Desert.
and they
Yeah.
rolled millions. It would take millions of these trees to be cut down. Logs rolled across this desert
Yeah.
to roll
Yeah.
these stones, and
So crazy.
maybe crushing a few of them falling off and just taking out like a couple thousand
Yeah.
slaves. But then they roll them up. And then they go, so then the historians go, oh, well, you know what they did? They took a trip to Europe and
Yeah.
they went and chopped down millions of trees and then ported them back to Egypt and then went to
Right.
the quarry and then did it. And you go, but
That
there's no
makes sense.
evidence at all of this.
No,
There's no
where
evidence
are
at
the
all.
tools? Where
You're
are the
talking
tools
out of
they
your
use?
ass.
Yeah.
And then when they found these pyramids, there's no entrance. So they couldn't get in. So
Oh,
they
that's
go,
right. They had to
okay,
blow a hole
let,
in it. Yeah,
let's
right.
dynamite a hole in the side of this fucking
Yeah.
thing. They go inside, they see a giant sarcophagus, 40-ton slab lid. Just the fucking lid is a
Yeah, I was
40-ton
just gonna
slab
say that,
lid.
that's just the door, right? And
Yeah.
wasn't it like even like a little girl? I did some research. They were saying how a little girl could push this 40,000 pound whatever it is there over. It's just like who figured out the math on this in the
Well,
middle of the
she was
desert while they
Captain
were doing
Marvel.
all this?
She
Oh,
was
right.
Captain Marvel. That's
That's
why.
got
That's
to be
how
what
she
it
could
was.
do it.
Right.
So they go, oh, well, that's why we believe it's a tomb, because there was a sarcophagus in it. But then when they took the lid off of it, it was empty. So they go, let's think about this one. Oh, I got it. Grave robbers. Grave robbers came and they got into the
Rebuilt the
pyramid,
pyramids.
even
Yeah.
though we had to dynamite our way in. They found a way in without dynamiting,
Right.
took the lid, took the body, put the lid back on, and off they went without any evidence. Another
Yeah.
good one. And when and then look at it. Okay, so here's the real stats. It's
It's
comprised
ridiculous.
just the Great Pyramid. Okay, just the Great Pyramid, 2,300,000 stones, 481 feet in altitude. Its base is 13 square acres, and there are multi-ton stones, some as large as 60 tons, such as there's 100 pink granite stones, or red granite, whatever you
Right.
want to say, in the king's chamber alone that are elevated up
Yeah.
above the ground.
And the
So
king clearly had to crawl because kings are known for crawling with that little crawl space in order to get into the
yeah,
king's
they get on
chamber.
their hands and knees all the
Yeah,
time.
because kings love doing that, especially how
Yeah.
they don't let you know it's the king's chamber either. Like they didn't mark it up or anything, because kings are known for doing that. I know if I was king, that's what I would be doing.
Exactly. And you go, okay, like I said, Justin, you and I, this was
Yeah.
a joke I was having with Tessarian. We were like, okay, so it's you and me, and we got a weekend. It's a hunter-gatherer society.
Yeah.
Civilized, but we're still, the Nile only floods a certain amount of time a year. The rest of the time, you and I are farming. That's what we are. We're
Right.
farmers back then. And I say, hey, Justin, I'm bored. I'm sick and tired of hacking crops and making this beer, wine, or whatever it is. So let's go and build a pyramid. And on our months off, we have a couple months in
Why
the
not?
summer, in the winter, or whatever it is. And while the Nile's flooded, let's go and we'll build this pyramid. And I have an idea, just for aesthetic purposes alone, like for no other functional purpose.
Just for the hell
Let's
of it.
break our backs and go fetch a bunch of 60-ton stones, and we're gonna cut them. We're
Right.
not even gonna cut
Got
them
the
to a
tools.
perfect dimension.
Yeah.
And then guess what? I'll put a pulley up there in the king's chamber. I want you to climb up. I'm gonna hawk them up to you, and you're just
Yeah.
gonna catch them, and you're just gonna plug them in the side of the rock.
Because they were
And you get there,
bored.
they're bored. Like
They were bored.
it's hilarious.
Yeah.
And I know we're making this bit of a satire there, folks, for those of you who've already got your concrete
I
idea
love
of how
it.
they built the pyramids.
I
But
love
I mean, just you got to think about little things, and we could go on and fucking on about this.
Yeah.
And
Well, you
that's
said 4.5
just
hours on Enslaved, so that's
Yeah.
and that's just one of the videos. 4.5
Yeah.
hours. And that's
Exactly.
I'm sure you'll cover it again. It's crazy.
And
It's-
it's just, and then the dimensions of the thing, they equate to pi within like a decimal. Like it's like,
Right.
and then they align with constellations and shit. And
Yeah,
they have
that's
this whole
another
thing.
point. It's like, why did they build it so accurately, like you said, within an inch? Like, why go to this trouble? Like, that's the thing that like nobody really seems to understand is like why they would go to all this trouble. Like, just for the hell of it, this is what primitive people did. I don't know about that. Like, I'm not sure. Like,
Yeah.
why isn't anybody doing that now? Not one person out of billions of people. Nobody's doing it, but they used to do that. Like, why? It
Yeah.
just doesn't make any sense.
We
It's
used to be
crazy.
incredibly brilliant with this ability to
Yeah.
take vine ropes and
Right.
stone tools to
Right.
carve. So they've even done some of the hieroglyphic walls that do have hieroglyphs on, they go for miles, okay?
Yeah.
They had teams back in the 60s go down to Egypt and try to literally just to go, oh, we'll show you. It's easy to carve all that stuff into
Yeah.
red, pink granite.
I was watching something like that.
Yeah, and they're
I saw
going
them with
in,
the
and
saw.
these guys were there for months trying to
Yeah.
prove they couldn't even get a bloody scratch into the wall,
Yeah.
let alone perfectly done drawings that have an
Yeah.
amazing encoded message that a lot of people don't understand. And it took some brilliant geniuses, Gerald Massey, Svala Delovich, so many others that we could talk about, that decoded what they were actually about, these hieroglyphs. But just the feat of getting it into the wall, like
Yeah.
most
And there's
people can't even,
millions.
most people don't even get out of the bed and make their fucking bed in the morning. They don't have the discipline to do that.
Guilty.
Most people
Right.
can't.
Guilty.
No, I know sometimes. I'm just
Yeah.
saying, right? To all of
Yeah.
us, we're all,
Sure.
and you go, let alone these guys had the discipline and the tenacity and the awareness and the love for what they were doing to build something like this. And then guess what?
Right.
The Great Pyramid isn't the only show in town, kids. This
Not
shit's
even
all over the
close.
planet. There's
All
stuff in
over
the
the
ocean.
planet.
There's stuff in South
Yup.
Africa. There's
In
stuff
mountains.
I went to Ireland, and I've never come back the same person since I saw what I saw over
Really.
there. I
Really.
went
Where
to,
would you
oh
go?
my God. So I went to Noth and Doth, which is essentially like a little, it's the Hobbitville. It's where the
Okay.
whole Hobbit story came out of there. It's basically these like underground homes that kind of like bulge out, and the grass has grown over top of them. And they're
That's
all
cool.
just this beautiful display of these little gnome homes all over the place.
Yeah.
And across the road is Newgrange. And Newgrange, holy Jesus, like it's just another marvel that you go, how did they do that? How did they get
Right.
the alignments? How did they loft those big stones up with the perfect carvings? And they have in Ireland all over the place, they have that amazing spiral symbol
Yeah.
that you will see in a lot of different places around the world. That is a universal for how nature grows things, like how like when
Right.
plants grow, they do the upward spiral like this.
Exactly.
And some people
Your
believe even the
fingertips
planet
and
goes through a spiral. They believe the kundalini in your body goes up the 33 vertebrae of the spine. There's that magic 33, and brings
yeah.
and enlightens you, and on we go. And they were encoding this stuff in their architecture. I don't think these were a bunch of dumb primitive apes that just woke up one day out of 100,000 years or so of just
Yeah.
being in complete darkness and went, "Hey, fellow
Let's do all
apes,
that.
let's
Yeah,
stop
right.
clubbing each
Let's
other to
do it.
death and go build marvels that will never be
Yeah.
reproducible by future man."
Yeah. See, well, you still have that like child's imagination about you. Like that's what's good. Like that's what I try to cling on to, is that so many people in today's world they don't seem to have the imagination. And I think the fact that they lack the imagination is why they don't care as much. You know, like I said,
Yeah.
to me, everyone that you would refer to as a genius always seems to be in touch with like that little kid in them. And you can marvel at these structures where a lot of people I try to put onto this stuff, they're like, oh, it's okay. You know, like I think it's in Abydos, Egypt, right, where they have like the plane and the helicopter and like what looks like a submarine. It's just like, you know, when I first saw that and realized like this isn't a joke, I just sat there kind of in a daze, like, what the fuck is going on? And like I wish more people did that. You know, it's like this how they know, like how did they pick this up? You know, and just the one thing I do appreciate though from like the peanut gallery is the excuses, because for somebody that likes to write jokes, I've heard some fantastic fucking, well, you know, it was this or it was that. It's like, you really believe that? You know, did you ever happen to see? I did like maybe like a 6 or 7 minute video on the pyramids and some of the mysteries of it. Like again, it was kind of ghetto. It didn't
I haven't seen it.
If you want,
Please
I'll send
send
it
it.
to you. Yeah, it's
Please send it.
kind of amusing too in my normal ridiculous fashion. But you know, it's just kind of me condescending stupid people. But like I brought up like the same thing, like you said, like a 40,000-pound door that like a little girl could push open, where it's just kind of like, you know, like who figured out the math on this? Sweating in the middle of the desert, rolling logs from your, it's just like, like, why can't we just consider that maybe there's more going on? This is why I encourage people to listen to this guy. Like, I'm telling you, like, they'll put you on all sorts of information that'll make your head spin. It's great.
Oh, and I love that. And I love what you're saying. First of all, I just want to say, I'm not saying the aliens built the pyramids. I'm not saying that. I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know. But I'm saying that what we're told is not lining up. Okay, it doesn't work for me. Nope. And I love what you're saying about the mystery and having that childlike wonder. Okay, that's something that has been systematically removed from us, lobotomized from us, and for good reason. Because it's like that moment in the Truman Show, one of my favorite movies, where little Truman, he's in the classroom and he's when I grow up, I want to be an explorer. And of course, they don't want Truman to know that he's on a television show. So the teacher says, "Oh, sorry, honey, there's nothing left to explore." And if you think about that scene in the movie, isn't that what we're told every day? Isn't that what we're told by all these debunkering? And it's like, oh, don't think outside the box. We've already got it all figured out, Johnny. We know all the answers to all the questions. When the whole spiritual practice, you know what message was contained in the ancient Egyptian literature and in many other Druids and all the ancient, and even in the frickin' Bible, if you know where to look? The idea that you're to look at the universe with wonder. You're to explore the mysteries of the universe. And you know what I say to a lot of religious Christians? I give them a 3-step tour. I say, okay, let's do this. I respect your religion. I respect your thing. But let's just go to the horse's mouth. Let's hear what Jesus himself had to say on this with what was allowed into the final copy of the official works, okay?
The official,
Jesus said, I asked him, what was the first commandment that Jesus gave his disciples? Do you know?
No, I wasn't raised Christian, so I'm not even sure.
I always do, but that's how I do it. I'm just giving you a hint. This is how I do it. If you're talking to all these people, so what was the first commandment that Jesus gave his disciples? And it's usually cricket. I've asked many people this. And then I'll be like, okay, well, he says in the New Testament, he says, seek ye first, the first step to enlightenment is seek ye first the kingdom of heaven. That's the first thing you need to do. And later on, the disciples finally get smart enough to ask him the follow-up question. And they say, well, where is this kingdom of heaven? But where is it? Is it up there? Is it in the afterlife? Is it in outer space? Is it all? And what does the Christ character say? He says very specifically, he goes, the kingdom of heaven is neither here nor there. The kingdom of heaven is within you.
Right.
Okay. And then the final statement he says before he allegedly blasts off up into the upper universe like Iron Man, he says, everything I can do, you can do in greater. Meaning, stop worshiping me. Planet of the Apes. Do this
too. Yeah.
I'm just a metaphor, and the story is telling you Iron Man doesn't exist. Thanos doesn't exist. But they're archetypal figures that you aspire to through the hero's journey. This is why you got to get into Joseph Campbell and the archetypes and Jung and all this stuff. And
I know those guys.
So the Christ told you, stop worshiping him. And also that what's the number one mission you have is to discover the kingdom of heaven. And where is it? It's within you. Drop the mic. Stop it with the literalization and the guilt and you're going to go to hell and you're damned and you got to follow this. You got to do this little
just control
ritual and roll these fucking beads. It's control. The priest classes of the ancient world, as they did in Egypt. So the ominous class got overturned by the Atenist class. And then, the Setians and all these people, they corrupted it. And there's a whole history of this in a lot of religions, okay? You realize that they were trying to compartmentalize knowledge into a position where they called, and most people were illiterate. Okay, most people were illiterate. So they didn't know how to read and write. They didn't understand.
Not that long ago, man. Yeah, like a couple hundred years ago, like people, they kept us stupid. That's what I'm trying to explain to people. It's like, you need a much wider view of reality. Like I said, we only started, like these televisions and stuff only came around, a few decades back. I mean, we're thousands of years out here. Like, people need more of an imagination because, like I said, these people intentionally keep us dumb and keep us from thinking like guys like you, and we wonder, like, why do we have all these problems?
Well, exactly. And when I look at the lexicon of the average teenager today, or the average person that's commenting online, it's all acronyms and like OMGs and I use that shit too. But like, our language is changing, and we're not thinking anymore. We're not thinking. And you know what I also was saying to somebody? I said, when you read these ancient texts and you study ancient esoteric mythology, you can't read it with a modern scientific brain, because the way they wrote it was they wrote it. And another thing Jesus said, which is, he's just, again, another version of the sun gods. He says, everything I say is in parable. Nothing I say is not in parable. What does that
Right.
mean? He's
Needs
basically saying everything I say is a
interpretation.
metaphor. It's a
Right,
metaphor. Heaven, hell, that's all conditions that you create within yourself. All
right,
the angels, all the demons, all the heavens, all the hells, they exist within you. And
right.
what you do with your free will that you've been given because you're a special,
Sure.
unique being on this planet is
God
you've
is
been given
good.
the will. Yeah, you've been
Yeah.
given the will to either move your life into a direction that's going to lead you to heaven, which is
Hmm.
the hard, narrow path down the corpus callosum of aligning the both hemispheres of the brain,
Hmm.
or it's going to lead you into hell. Because when you're depressed, it feels like hell. When
It
you feel
does.
down on yourself, it feels like you're in eternal torment and you will never escape it. And I know from experience because I grew up with that. I struggled with that for years.
Sure.
And how did I get out of that? How did I get resurrected from the dead? Was when I finally went through the underworld cycle in my consciousness, in my body, in
Do
my
I?
life.
Yeah.
You know, and when I followed that method, it changed my life, and now I live in a state of heaven. Even though the earth might be in a state of hell,
Right. You're
I live
still
in a
good.
state
We're
of
still
heaven.
good. Right.
And
Right.
everybody has the key to do that. And that's the message of all these ancient traditions. And they've been bastardized. They've been torn apart by this priesthood and these elites that have been
Hmm.
trying to use it for methods of control. Because let me tell
Right.
you this, if I can tell you, I own your soul in the afterlife, you have to do these deeds for me in this life, or otherwise eternal fire and damnation will befall you. What kind of message is that to tell children? What kind of
Yeah.
message is that to tell people? Do you think, are you going to force people to be enlightened? No, it's control. So that's
Hmm.
why it's a different, you have to, it's not throw the Bible out, throw the ancient books out. Go read
No,
the Nag Hammadi, go read the
it's not
Mahabharata, go
bullshit.
read the
It's
Quran, go read the Bible. You got to look at it all together. It's all
hmm
fractured pieces of knowledge. And guess what?
right.
I one day want to take some ground penetrating radar and go and occupy the fucking Vatican, Area
Dude,
51.
I'll go with.
I mean,
Let's
there's
go.
nothing
I
there
am with
anymore.
you.
Let's go to the Vatican. Let's go
I'm with
find
you.
out what the real shit
Yeah.
is under
Yeah.
there.
Was it
They got
53 miles of
miles and
library?
miles of books
Something
under
like
there.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the big secret? Like, like why can't
There's some
and that's
Indiana Jones shit going on.
totally, brother, totally. Hey, listen, my phone battery's on pretty low. Would you be
Okay.
interested in picking would you be interested in picking this one up like another day, man? You fucking get
Yeah,
killed this
sure, man.
conversation, man.
Anytime.
Fantastic, man.
You're
All
awesome to
right,
talk to you,
awesome.
Justin. I
No,
appreciate it.
absolutely. Thanks so much. Yeah, definitely come on. Like I said, you got so much knowledge up in there. Anybody who watches this, check out David Whitehead and the Unslaved podcast. I mean, this guy's just chock full of information. So, dude, thanks again for having or coming on the whatever I call this, my Facebook feed or whatever it is, and we'll pick it up.
I got one
I
more
wouldn't want to call
question,
it a
Justin.
show. Yeah, go
One
for
more
it.
question before we go. And thanks for that. And thanks for
Yeah.
everybody listening. But my wife wants to know, do you watch comedy?
Not really, to be honest with you. A little bit, but not so much.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
I'm a weird guy.
Her
Yeah.
favorite comedian, her favorite comedian is Sebastian Maniscalco. She thinks that guy is fucking hilarious. So she wanted to know if you think if you've seen him, if you think he's funny.
Yeah, here's my opinion on him. I actually kind of have like a complex with that guy because on one end he does make me laugh.
Okay,
Like
here
he
we
is
go.
amusing. He does. I do find him amusing. But as somebody who actually writes jokes, I have to also like kind of like snide up at that guy because he doesn't really tell jokes. He just puts on an accent. He kind of moves around like this and hey, I'm at Chipotle, bada bang, and hey, the neighbors are at the door, and I'm just kind of more like I'm like, why do crossing guards are always old ladies when old ladies need the most help across the street? Why does the game Uno require multiple players? Why not call it Dos or Alguno? It's like, why do granny apples expire more quickly? So like his style is so like I'm like a
Ties,
philosophical
Justin.
comic.
You're
Yeah.
right. I like that. I
Yeah.
like that. I like that. You know what it is? I think she just likes them. She likes the manners. She loves I love
Yeah.
the Italian
Oh, he's
culture, man. I
entertaining.
lose it.
Yeah. Sure.
He's entertaining. I love those
Sure.
people, man. I just think it's funny. But
Yeah.
anyways, I just wanted to ask you, and
No,
that's
that's
cool. I love
fine.
the philosophical stuff. So I'm guessing you like the George Carlins and the
That's
Bill
my
Hicks
guy
and all
right
those
there. I love
guys.
Bill Hicks. Yeah. I'm kind of doing this for George Carlin because he's not
Nice.
like around where it's like somebody's got to, not to compare myself to that genius, but like somebody has to pick up where he left off. And I don't really see anybody doing it. Like I said, Maniscalco, like he's funny, but like, but hey, you don't want to hear a quick one? This is an unreleased joke. I'm probably going to post in like a day or two. You can send this to your wife or whatever. But I said, had this one go, so I've been talking to this girl, right? I spoke to her on the phone 2 or 3 times. On the third phone call, she hits me and she asks, have you ever masturbated to me before? I felt awkward and I didn't know how to respond. So I told her I'd leave that to her imagination, So, see, with me, you got to think a little bit sometimes, Like I said, I'm not somebody that's singing and dancing out there, I'm just
If you add some singing and dancing, I think it would really enhance the joke, though. It would be good.
I'm a work in progress. I'm learning as I go. But, brother, thanks so much for coming on. Like I said, we definitely got to do this again.
Dude, it's
Man. This is
been
the best
lots of
one I had
fun.
yet. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
All right, brother.
Thank
We'll
you,
talk
brother.
soon, man.
Thank you. We'll be
Thank
in
you.
touch. And thanks to everybody listening. We'll talk soon. All right.
Definitely.
Cheers.
Take care, baby. Be easy.